Hey everyone, today we are going to be making some Valentine's Day bagels. You can get the printable recipe at therealtattooedmomma.com and then just search bagels, or you can just click the link that is in the description box below. The night before you want to eat your bagels, you're going to prep your dough. Start off by adding half a cup of sourdough starter to a bowl. If you don't have a sourdough starter, you can use a half packet of dry active yeast mixed together with a half cup of water. Next, add 1 cup of water, 3 tablespoons maple syrup or sweetener of your choice. I wouldn't recommend using honey though, because it doesn't mix well with this dough. You'll see that this dough is going to be really stiff and hard to work with, and honey just doesn't incorporate nicely into it. Add 2 teaspoons of salt and 2 cups of flour. I know the recipe calls for 4 cups, but for right now we're only going to use 2 cups. Mix it all together with a stand mixer on low speed for about 7 to 10 minutes, or by hand, and just mix it until it's all incorporated well. Switch to a dough hook. Now here's where we're gonna add the remaining 2 cups of flour, but we're going to do it a half cup at a time. And just mix, mix, mix until there are no more dry spots, or the majority of the dry spots are gone. Roll the dough into a ball, put it in a bowl, cover it, and then set it aside till the morning. If you're in a time crunch, you can do 4 hours, but that would be my suggested minimum. After your dough is done resting, you're going to divide the dough into 10 equal pieces. Shape your bagels by either using a heart-shaped cookie cutter, or if you don't have a cookie cutter, you're gonna place a ball of dough into your hands, form your hands into a heart shape, and you're just going to squeeze that ball of dough to form around your hands. Now poke a hole in the center with your finger, or use a thick straw. Using the straw helped the bagel keep its shape a lot better, but if you don't have one, using your finger is just fine. And I would say the size of the hole needs to be about a nickel wide to a quarter, because remember, these are gonna rise and your dough is gonna come together a bit more. So the hole will get smaller and smaller. And alternatively, you can make regular bagels here. Just form the dough into a circle, flatten it down, and again, poke a hole with your finger and do a barrel roll type of motion to stretch the hole further. Cover it with a kitchen towel and let rest for 1 to 3 hours. If you don't want to wait, you can just move on to the next step, but the longer you wait, the fluffier the bagels will be. Next, bring a pot of water to a boil and preheat your oven to 425 degrees. If you don't know what a boil is, this is a boil. I've included it because I remember when I first got married, I did not know the difference between simmer, boil, and just hot. So my rice was messed up the first 100 times. Once your water has come to a boil, and it can be a boil or a rolling boil, it doesn't matter. Once it starts boiling, add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. I didn't have brown sugar, so I used regular sugar here, and it's fine, you can use that. And 1 tablespoon, a little bit at a time, of baking soda. Again, that's 1 tablespoon of baking soda, but add it in just a little bit at a time, otherwise you're going to have this bubbly rollover effect, kind of like when you make pasta noodles and you put the lid on, the same thing's going to happen, except at a way faster rate. I end up calling my kids over because they and I always get a kick out of this part. It's just, we feel like scientists. For my pot, I could only add 3. If you have a larger pot, add more. Just make sure they're not crowded, because they are going to puff further while they're in the water. And don't crowd your bagels, otherwise they won't fluff. That was my revised quote from the movie Julie and Julia, where she talks about, don't crowd the mushrooms, otherwise they won't brown. After 1 to 3 minutes, flip them over so the other side can boil in the water for a bit. And this time is really entirely up to you. They will continue to puff the longer you leave them in the water. So leave them in the water until they're at your desired puffiness. However big they are after you pull them out of the boiling water, that's how big they're going to be once they're baked. So while they're baking, they don't get puffier, they're just cooking. Oh, and don't be a know-it-all and then throw all your bagels into the pot and then just hold them down yourself, because it's not gonna work. I did this and they all started forming into each other as they expanded in the hot water. So it was I'm not gonna say disaster, but it was close to that, trying to get them all pulled apart, reshaped, and back onto the baking tray. While you're waiting, line your baking dish with parchment paper. You can use foil though if you don't have parchment paper on hand. I use a cookie sheet to bake the bagels. You can use a cast iron pan if you have one. Just make sure that it's preheated. Because of the thickness of the pan, the bagels are going to take a lot longer to cook thoroughly in the oven if the pan isn't already preheated. And that goes the same too if you're using like a casserole dish, because you don't have a cookie sheet. Preheat it a little bit in the oven first, then add your bagels. Once the bagels are to your puffy preference, place them on your parchment paper lined baking sheet or whatever oven safe dish you're using. Now, if the shape got a little wonky while it was in the water, when you pull them out of the water, this is the time where you can reshape them a bit more. Now, exactly how you shape them here in this part of the process is exactly how they're going to turn out once baked. But be careful, they're hot. Now continue adding bagels to your pot, flipping them, pulling them out of the water until all your bagels are done. Okay, once we've pulled our bagels out of the water, now is the perfect time to add your toppings while the bagels are still wet and can really hold on to those toppings. If you don't want any toppings, continue to the next step. I didn't have any bagel toppings, so I added garlic powder to some, chia seeds to others, a mixture in a couple more, and then left a few of them plain. If you use toppings though, it will hide any mistakes that you have made on top of your bagels. Once your oven comes to temperature, remember it's 425 degrees, you're going to place your bagels in the middle rack of the oven. Leave them in there for 20 minutes or until they are slightly golden. It's okay to have some browned parts, but too many and your bagels will be a bit stiff. And this is what I mean by slightly golden. Take them out of the oven after the 20 minutes and let them rest on your counter for 10 minutes to finish cooking internally. After they've rested for 10 minutes or more, you can eat them. If they're still slightly underdone, just cut them in half and put them in your toaster. You probably just didn't make the hole large enough to allow for even cooking, which is no biggie. We can fix this. We can fix this. Anyway, that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed this bagel recipe. I spent a lot of time perfecting it and making it as easy as possible. And if you like it, tag me, theattooed.momma on Instagram. And then I'm still working on the Facebook page, but on Instagram, I'm fully active and you can tag me there. Hashtag bagel besties if you made this recipe for or with your best friend. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.